The Waylanders brings to life the legends of the once flourishing Celtic cultures. With 6 main classes, 30 advanced classes, and over 800 skills, you have many ways to create your hero. Added to this are the varied animation sets for Celtic and medieval characters and vibrant combat formations. The Waylanders will let you experience an adventure never told in a video game before.
The story begins 2,500 years ago, in the mythical Celtic period. But to talk about the story, it's better you're told by our script team. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Fernando.
Are you ready to talk about the story now?
I am, but you mentioned our script team, and aren't we missing someone?
Yeah, but we cannot talk about him at this moment. There is something about the contract. Maybe later.
Okay, well, maybe we can keep it as a surprise, and then people will be pleasantly surprised because we're dealing with one of the best.
Yeah, but to talk about the story to the Kickstarter community, you're the best. So, could you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Waylanders is inspired by the Celtic mythological cycle. It's a time of great warriors and uneasy alliances with the fantastical creatures of the world. Waylanders is a tactical RPG with pause and play mechanics that takes place in 2 different periods of time in the same area of Brigantia. As a party leader, you'll be moving between these periods of time and working with 2 distinct parties as you struggle to save your world. Most exciting, this team is bringing stories of their homeland and of their ancestors to the RPG space. Stories that I was completely unfamiliar with until I started working on this project. And it's an honor to work with them to bring something so unique to this genre of gaming and to you.
Para la creación del universo de Waylanders nos hemos basado en la Galicia real para crear nuestra propia Galicia mítica. Por ejemplo, en la época celta, el asentamiento principal será Brigantia con la Torre de Hércules, mientras que en la época medieval será Santiago con su foco central en la catedral. Aparte de estas localizaciones, tenemos otras como Ézaro, las Médulas o las Islas de Ons, que nos proporcionan mucha diversidad a nuestro mundo.
But the Galatians are dealing with the Celtic and Celtic history, and that presents a story that hasn't been told before outside of that history. Scholars know it, but gamers don't. And I think that's a huge opportunity because they're going to see something new and fresh with new creatures, new races, and of course some new kind of historical periods that don't often get explored in fantasy role-playing.
Para las razas de Waylanders nos hemos basado en mitología gallega, tanto para las razas generales como para las del editor de personajes. Por ejemplo, en estas últimas destacan, aparte de los humanos, los fomoris, los licántropos o los moures.
We've been looking pretty deeply into how the characters will interact, and we very much want to explore the idea of romantic interest between the party members and the player character. We think it's a huge part of role-playing is to bring, not just emotions like fear and anger and revenge, but also to explore the idea of love and see how that plays out across the story that takes thousands of years to complete. Well, I don't want to detail too many of the important choices. I'm pretty sure the team would be a little upset if I spoiled their key stuff. But I will say we've been looking very deeply to make sure that there are some significant moments that will change major outcomes for the game. And one of the interesting elements that we have to play with is the idea that we're moving through time periods. There are 2 different elements of the game, and we can see some of the choices you make in the earlier time period reflect in the later. Companions are going to probably be the most affected people when it comes to time travel. They are essentially a mix. One group of them are the Celts, who are mortal and are going to go through a bit of a rude awakening as they rediscover themselves and what's happened to them in the modern period. But there are also characters who are immortal, and those characters have been alive through all the changes that have occurred in the 1,000-year period between the Celtic and the medieval.
The main innovation of the Waylanders are the combat formations. We can fuse our characters, all the team or only a group of them, to create a new combined and powerful character to use in the game. Right now we can show 3 examples: the phalanx, the arrow and the orb. You find a narrow path in the mountain. You can use your formation to block it and then use a sorcerer to attack from behind with full protection. Another one could be to use the Phalanx and the Commander's Battalion. The Commander is one of the advanced classes of the Ranger. To do a pincer movement, trapping the enemies in the middle. Using the tactical pause, we can combine the use of different formations during the combat, taking advantage of their possibilities. We'll have 2 different formations for every basic class, so we'll have 12 different formations during the game. Our intention is to offer the players a very deep combination of tactics to let them choose their own way to play the game.
We are very confident in the power of the community to help us build a project like the Waylanders. Even though we could finish the game and make the launch in 2020, we want to make the game bigger. We want to make the game better. We want to translate it into more languages. And overall, we want the feedback from the community to make it happen.
Hi guys, I'm Jacopo Gallelli, founder and CEO of Dynamic Studios. It's been 1 year since we've made the Fractured project public. 1 year of great challenges, but also great satisfaction thanks to the support of our awesome and ever-growing community. Today is the day we take the project one step further. So let me tell you what Fractured is all about. When we started this project, we haven't approached it only as professionals in the gaming industry, but also as gamers ourselves, truly passionate about sandbox MMORPGs, a genre that we believe has a great deal of potential for innovation, but also presents several critical issues. First of all, the genre is typically not inclusive, which means it tends to alienate whole categories of gamers. For example, those of you who like a more friendly and cooperative environment because of hardcore player versus player rules, but also those of you who are maybe more mature and don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate to a single game. Another big problem that always annoyed us are static worlds. Now, in sandbox MMOs, the economy is usually open and dynamic, but the rest of the game, not really. First of all, the environment is usually static, and combat is often also old-fashioned and static. Now, let's go through all the core features of Fractured so you can figure out how everything we've been making has been designed to fix these issues and give you a whole new kind of sandbox MMO experience. When you start your journey in Fractured, the first call you have to make is your race. Now, I know that the concept of race is nothing new in MMOs. In fact, it's been a staple of the RPG genre since its inception. However, the consequences of your race selection in MMOs are generally quite limited. Maybe they change the place where you start your journey or your basic attributes, or maybe the chain of quests that you have to follow to progress. In Fractured, the situation instead is completely different. Your race selection has far-reaching consequences. It dramatically impacts both your gameplay and the ways you can interact with other players.
Let's say that you want to play in a friendly environment and you want to cooperate with other people in order to create this nice community with mutual respect. If that's the case, you should definitely start playing Fractured as a beastman on planet Arboreus, and that's because each beastman is locked into a good alignment as long as he stays on his own planet, which literally means that he can't perform hostile activities against other players. In particular, the only form of player versus player is purely consensual. If instead you prefer a completely opposite scenario, which means that you like PvP in a really hardcore environment and you crave for the harshest kind of competition with other players, then you should start playing Fractured as a demon on planet Tartarus. That's because Tartarus features full loot open PvP and with really not any kind of restriction on it or hard-coded rules. The only thing that you should be worried about are other people and their retaliation. Basically, we have designed Tartarus as a heaven for people who think that the only law that matters is the law of the strongest.
Yeah, and finally you could sit somewhere between these two extremes that Andrea just told you about. You maybe like PvP and you like risk versus reward, but you also want to avoid the extreme consequences of these behaviors, such as the meaningless griefing. If that's the case, then humans and the planet they rule on, Syndesia, are a very good pick. Humans have a well-structured feudal society where crime is still possible, but it can have serious consequences. So you could either be the righteous governor of a town or the cruel bandit lord that just raided that town, and any path is really open to you if you're a human. The second place where we are trying to revolutionize the world of sandbox MMORPGs is progression. Now, in MMOs, the typical progression pattern is called vertical progression. In a vertical progression, your character becomes stronger over time, and that can happen in different ways. Maybe you gain experience point and your character levels up, or you gain skill points, or you complete achievements. Any way that happens though, one thing is always there, the grind. And by the grind, I mean the need to repeat the same action over and over and over. In Fractured, instead, we use a completely different system known as horizontal progression. When you create your character, you set its strengths and weaknesses by picking its attributes, and these attributes won't really change over the course of gameplay. So you are able to join your friends in the most epic adventure from day one and enjoy from day one what in other games would be called the end game. Instead, your character progresses by becoming more knowledgeable, and this happens by learning new abilities through a unique system of our design known as the knowledge system.
Yeah, this knowledge system has been designed to reduce repetition as much as possible. In particular, learning new abilities involves the completion of many different and unique tasks, such as traveling and exploring different parts of the world, interacting with different creatures, and completing many different activities, even weird ones like dying and coming back to life in a specific circumstance. With this system, a player, of course, will end up knowing hundreds of different abilities, which doesn't mean he will be able to use all of them at the same time. Quite the contrary, you will be able to fit only a few of them in your hotbar, for example. And to change those and memorize new ones, the only thing you need to do is to find the fire, may it be in your home or in a public inn or a bonfire in a camp that you just built. Sit down and enter the so-called resting phase, during which, of course, you can change your abilities, picking new ones that you already know, and build an overall new character that you may have in mind to start a different gaming section.
The first meaning of dynamic world is a world where everything you see is a potential resource used for building or crafting. Let's have a look at both. First of all, in Fractured, every item is crafted by players. Remember that time when we killed a giant rat and looted a double eggs from its corpse?
Yes, that's not something that's gonna happen in Fractured.
Yeah, definitely not. Also, when designing crafting processes, we've always paid attention to minimize grind. So the process that brings you from the raw resource to the complete product is engaging because it's challenging, not because it requires you to repeat the same action over and over.
Yeah, right. Take building a mansion of yours as an example. You don't really need to chop down 1,000 trees and gather hundreds of rocks and basically run back and forth to transport all of those resources in your inventory. The building itself requires only a handful of resources. The catch is finding those resources and being able to transport them. You have to organize expeditions to build carts and wagons or trade with other players. This same kind of concepts also applies to basic crafting for equipment or consumables. The amount of resources that you need is really limited. The point is that to finish your craft, you will require several unique steps. In the end, these processes are always varied and quite challenging, and therefore we really believe that they will never feel like a grind to a player.
Speaking of construction, starting settlements and evolving them into towns is fundamental for all the planets and races. This is because the planets and the regions within these planets are rich in some resources and totally lack others. This makes long-distance trade a key component of the economic system because guilds and corporations need trade routes to operate and expand, and trade routes need towns. So if a town is abandoned and decays, or is mismanaged or changes alignment, that can start a domino effect that has consequences on the political and economic landscape of the whole world. And that's the very definition of dynamism for us. Of course, it would be a shame if dynamism was only about crafting, but luckily it's not. It also applies to combat.
Yes, whenever you approach a fight in Fractured, understanding your surroundings and understanding how you can exploit them at your advantage is crucial. Even something as simple as a pond of water can become the key to overcome an enemy that would otherwise be beyond your possibilities. In this clip, for example, you can see Jacopo electrocuting some monsters through water, but he could also have decided to freeze the water in order to trap them, or even contaminated the water with poison. The possibilities really are endless.
Yeah, also, even if you don't exploit the environment, Fractured is definitely not a game where you can fight standing still. We have taken inspiration from classic action RPGs to create a combat system where there is no auto attack, there is no tab targeting, and all your action, even the simplest ones like the swing of your sword, are events that can be avoided or countered or even hurt someone you didn't intend to. So if you couple these action RPG mechanics with hundreds of spells that can interact with each other, that can generate environmental effect or alter existing ones, you really understand how every day is a new gameplay in Fractured. As you surely noticed, Fractured is an ambitious project. The full interactable environments, the large-scale battles that come with world colonization, managing all of these requires overcoming massive technological challenges. Luckily for us, we have an awesome world-building platform that helps us, Spatial OS. It combines a backend engine with hosting, it integrates with Unity right out of the box, and it's been designed to allow small teams like ours to make large-scope MMORPGs with a large open world and a virtually endless amount of entities in the same area. It's exactly what we needed to build Fractured. Other than that, the company behind it, Improbable, offers great support to studios working with Spatial OS, including a program that covers server expenses as long as the game is in development. We're going to join this program as soon as this crowdfunding campaign has been successfully completed. So, thank you all for watching this video and for your amazing support. You can follow us on fracturedmmo.com, our community boards, our social media pages, and our Discord channel. We can't wait to receive your feedback, and see you soon in game.